Hey everybody, welcome to the Friday night live stream of studentloanjustice.org. Hope everybody's doing well out there. As I said, it's Friday, April 17th. I think this is like, the third week of quarantine for the country? I'm not even sure anymore. I've lost count. So I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a good week. I know the jobs report yesterday was terrible. I want to say it was 5.24 million more jobless people to go with the already 13 plus 5, 13 plus 3. The other 16 million that were declared in the couple of weeks prior to that. And believe it or not, there was even, I think, a million or so before that. So we're up to around 22 or so million new jobless people in the country. If that's you, sorry to hear it. Things will get better. But let me just say, hang in there. Let's all hang together on this. I think everybody's hurting, by and large, and so there is a ray of hope through this gray storm cloud stuff that we see ourselves faced with, and that is student loan justice. So we are Student Loan Justice. Pretty weak segue, I know, but we've been around for 15 years now. We've been featured on 60 Minutes and the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times and Washington Post and Rolling Stone Magazine and Vice News and Fox News and pretty much every kind of news that you can possibly think of. We've traveled the country. We've gotten a lot of legislation introduced into the Senate and the House, going back to 2006. We've written books. We've given speeches. We've done all that stuff. And I'm here to tell you that right now, here tonight, I am more optimistic than I have ever been. Not that we're going to get our standard bankruptcy protections rights restored to student loans, which is the number one thing that we fought for 15 years, folks. I am now very happy to tell you that, really, folks, this is a dead lending system. The federal student loan system, private student loans as well, they're done. They're toast. Put a fork in them. You know, I talked to the former head of the student loan program 3-4 weeks ago, a guy named Wayne Johnson. Mr. Johnson told me that 80% of all federal student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. We also know that the class of 2004, what was that, 16 years ago? Their default rate on student loans is 40%. And they were only borrowing 1/3 of what people are borrowing today. So if the default rate for 2004 students was 40%, what do you think it is for more recent students? Is it 60%? Yeah. Is it 70%? Is it 80 or 90%? Yeah, probably. Because here's the deal, folks. Right now, as we speak, there's a student loan interest/payment moratorium going on. And I think most people can agree that, hey, Robin, how you doing? Nice little hand thing you got going there. Most people, and by the way, welcome if you're new. We're glad that you found us. If you have any questions or comments, throw them out in situ. I'm very happy to respond to them on the fly as I see the comments passed. So, where was I going with that? So it's a failed lending system, folks. It just is. Right now, nobody is paying on their loans. And if you think that 6 months from now, the economy is just going to be fantastic and everybody's going to just very happily begin repaying their student loans, I don't think so, folks. I don't think so. I think this lending system is done. Quite frankly, I think this lending system went over the cliff probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And right now, the president and Congress have a very nice opportunity to sort of save face, I guess you'd call it. But the bottom line is, this lending system has to go away. It's done. The federal government has demonstrated that it has no business being in the lending business. And even more deeply than that, I think the founding fathers' wisdom was proven in spades by this lending system, where the founders called for uniform bankruptcy laws back 250 years ago nearly. So student loans are the only type of loan that's been uniquely stripped of this constitutionally called for protection. So the founding fathers saw this failed monstrous, big government, predatory lending rat trap coming from 250 years in the past. And, a lot of people don't realize, read the Constitution. Near the front of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, where the whole list of congressional powers are enumerated. And you will see near the top of that list the call for uniform bankruptcy laws. That didn't happen by accident, folks. The Founding Fathers knew how a lending system could be used to conquer and enslave a citizenry. And those are John Adams' words, not mine. So, people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, they themselves were being absolutely wrecked under predatory debt to British banks and merchants. So you look on that list, and at the very top of the list, you see uniform bankruptcy protections. Below that is stuff like, just throwaway items after that, like, I don't know, building a navy, raising an army, declaring war, coining currency. Yeah, all those things are below the call for uniform bankruptcy laws. So what is that telling you? Congress very sneakily removed this right and turned it into a hyperinflationary, predatory lending system. And we don't have to put up with this shit, folks. Pardon my French, but quite frankly, the people who arranged this cheesy rat trap against us, the citizens, I think they're thrilled that they were able to perpetuate this predatory lending system as long as they have. I think these people have had their golden parachutes packed for years, if not decades. I think they're pinching themselves that they have been able to perpetuate this indefensible, unconstitutional lending system for as long as they have. Well, I think we're done, folks. I think we're done. No more. So right now, the president has it in his power. Now, whether it's Donald Trump or any other president, doesn't matter. The president, by virtue of the office they sit in, has the power to cancel all federal student loans, all federally held student loans, by executive order. So that's 85% of all student loans. Chances are you probably have loans that fall under this category. If you have student loans, you probably have federally held student loans. So, and the president could do this without raising one dime in tax, not having to pay 1 penny in tax appropriation from Congress. That's completely not needed. Also, the president could do this without adding 1 penny to the national debt. Now, we've seen, $5 trillion thrown out over the past 5 weeks or so by Congress and the president. We've seen, I think, 2 or 3 trillion go to Wall Street, 2 trillion go to small businesses, and the other crumbs went down to us, the actual citizens. But all that stuff is going to cost. All that stuff either adds to the national debt or will require taxes to be raised. Canceling student loans does neither of those things. The taxpayers have paid for those student loans a long time ago. And so, and I hate to say bad things about Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and because they were both for canceling loans. But if you listen to their rhetoric, they're like, and I'm going to cancel student loans. And here's how I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to do a tax on this and a fee on that and a tax and a fee and a nonsense. That's nonsense, folks. I'm sorry. And believe me, we supported Bernie Sanders very strongly and Elizabeth Warren. In fact, more than Bernie Sanders. But I'm telling you, folks, that's nonsense. These loans were funded by the taxpayer many, many years ago. They can be canceled without 1 additional dime of taxpayer money needed, nor 1 penny added to the national debt. So we started a petition 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, calling on, the President Trump to indeed issue that executive order. I'm happy to tell you that right now here today, as we sit here, we're getting close to 227,000 signatures, which is pretty good. But we need more. We need more signatures, folks. So if you remember nothing about anything that I say tonight, remember at least to sign the petition you see above or maybe over there, and get 3 people that you know to also sign. If everybody who'd already signed the petition did that, then we would have 1 million signatures by the end of the weekend. So please do that. There is true power in numbers, but only when everybody does a little bit to move the needle in our direction. So I don't think that's too much to ask, and I hope that you don't either. So tonight I want to talk about Joe Biden's cancellation plan, and also another cancellation plan that's out there. So right now, as we speak, there's two student loan cancellation plans in the ether. In no particular order, let me start with Joe Biden. So Joe Biden just announced a student loan cancellation plan. It is terrible, folks. It's horrible. I'm just going to say it's terrible. First of all, it only applies to undergrads. Second of all, it only applies to to state schools, like state universities. I presume maybe also community colleges, state-funded schools. And the real kicker here is it only applies to tuition-related expenses. So who's left out of this? Well, pretty much 85% of all college students are left out of that in some way, shape, or form. Everybody went to graduate school? Nothing. Everybody went to non-state schools, which is 2/3 of all colleges? They got nothing. And even the undergrads, even the small slice of undergrads, the 1/3 of all undergrads to whom this actually affects, they only want to cancel tuition-related stuff. So I don't know what the ratio of school you went to, but we're not talking a lot of money here, folks. And that on its face is just insulting. Now, Joe Biden, to his credit, and we're no fans of Joe Biden, by the way. He's got a terrible history on student loans, particularly removing bankruptcy protections for student loans. But Joe Biden, to his credit, did put into his presidential agenda that he would fight for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. And that's not nothing. But Joe Biden has got a lot of splaining to do because, I'm not even going to say all the bad things that he's done on the student loan issue as a senator from Delaware, etc. But I will simply say that Joe Biden claimed that he was going to adopt Elizabeth Warren's bankruptcy position. Well, Elizabeth Warren not only called for the return of bankruptcy protections, Elizabeth Warren also pledged that on day one as president, she would issue an executive order calling on the Department of Education and its contractors to stop opposing student loan borrowers in bankruptcy court. Elizabeth Warren did that. So if Joe Biden really means it when he says that he's adopting Elizabeth Warren's bankruptcy platform for student loans, then he has got to make that exact same pledge. And we will not support him until he does. 4 years ago, we didn't have any good major party candidate to endorse. We endorsed the Green Party very happily, very enthusiastically. And we will do that again if Joe Biden does not, at a minimum, make the same pledge, that Elizabeth Warren made. So if that concerns you, if you're a blue no matter who person, I get that. I respect that. I would only urge you to get with the Biden campaign and in the strongest possible terms, tell him that he needs to make the very same bankruptcy pledge that Elizabeth Warren made on the campaign trail, on the campaign stump. So Joe Biden's loan cancellation plan sucks, people. It's nothing worth voting for. It's nonsense. And, not only that, maybe I'll come back to that. Let's talk about the other loan cancellation plan, shall we? So there's another loan cancellation plan coming out from Ayanna Pressley and another Democratic member of Congress, whose name escapes me at the moment. I think it's called the Student Debt Relief Act. So we looked pretty carefully at this thing. It is a cancel up to $30,000 plan. And dudes, again, I'm telling you, it's nonsense. It requires raising taxes or somehow coming up with a huge pot of taxpayer money and using that money to pay the Department of Education to cancel the loans, right? It's the same, I'm going to cancel student loans, and here's how I'm going to pay for it. Well, because of what I have already said tonight, that's just nonsense. That's just ridiculous. These loans don't need to be paid for. These loans have already been paid for. They could be canceled tomorrow with not one additional dime drawn from the taxpayer, not one additional penny added to the national debt. Hey, Ryan Jones. How is there only 2 people watching? Alan Collins is the only pure uncompromised. Oh, well, thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate that. Well, it's Friday night. Typically, on an average night, we'll maybe get 200 or 300 people viewing, and that's usually after the original viewing. I'm coming around a little bit early tonight, so. But hey, I appreciate the sentiment, my friend. Kind words. So, folks, my point is that the other loan cancellations that you're seeing, they're pardon my French, but they're just dog shit. They guarantee more of the same. Really, they're only going to guarantee the perpetuation of this hyperinflationary, predatory lending system. We already know the Department of Education has no desire or intentions of canceling any student loans. They just do not. History is, including recent history, is very clear on this point. How many people have gotten their loans forgiven through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program? The last time I checked, it was like 100. Like 100 out of like 44,000. So that's like 0.8%. The other 99.2%, Department of Education found a way to disqualify those people. They didn't dot their I, they didn't cross their T, whatever the case may be. Same thing with IBR. Maybe you're in IBR. Maybe you want to make it through IBR. Well, I've got some bad news for you. First of all, the first IBR loans won't even be canceled until I think the year 2027 or something like that, or even later. Second of all, already, as of 5 years ago, 57% of the people in IBR had been kicked out for failing to adequately verify their income. That's an annual, onerous process that, on a year-by-year basis, the Department of Education typically will kick out they will disqualify 30 or so percent of the people who turn in these annual income verification things. So, I mean, and this is just math, folks. If you kick out 30% of the people in a program every single year, then just statistically, the odds of any one borrower actually successfully making it through that program for, 20, 25 years, it's like vanishingly small. It's like 2%. So I don't think more than, if even 10% of the people who are in IBR right now actually make it through IBR, it will be a statistical miracle. But dudes, I'm telling you, the Department of Education is not our friend. The Department of Education is out for itself. The Department of Education is a captured agency. The Department of Education looks at its own bottom line first. The Department of Education jettisoned its even any pretense of actually fighting for us, the students, many years ago. And so we cannot count on another murky, clunky, sophisticated, congressionally approved loan cancellation program. It just will not work. And don't be an idiot. And don't put on the rose-colored glasses. If you've been alive, if you've been on this earth, if you've been out of school for even 5 years or more, it should be dawning upon you at some point that something is just outrageously wrong with this lending system. Go with your gut. Your instinct is correct. This is a failed, dead lending system. And at this point, I would say paying anything back into it is not only unwise, it's unpatriotic. It's feeding the beast. Don't do that. All you do by feeding the beast is guaranteed that the kids, tens, hundreds of millions of people who are going to follow in our footsteps are going to be even more screwed than we were. The founding fathers are looking down and saying, what happened? How did our citizens get so weak? How did they let themselves become conquered and enslaved under this ridiculous government-run, tyrannical, predatory, hyperinflationary, unconstitutional, indefensible lending program? I think we're a stronger people than that, and I think the founders are on our side. So, and just think about that. At some point it becomes sort of a patriotic duty to stand up for what is right. And if you're not doing that, if you're bending over for this insane lending system, then you're not doing the right thing. And I hope that you will tell everybody you know what I just said, because it's true. This lending system needs to go away. At this point, there is no good options for the president to stimulate the economy. Anything that they might do, an infrastructure project, payroll tax suspension, anything you can point to would require either raising taxes or adding to the national debt. The only thing that would not do that, that I know of, unless you like sell off the national parks or something, is forgiving student loans, canceling them. I don't like to use the word forgiveness, by the way. We're not looking for forgiveness here. We are the victims. We got completely put together by this indefensible lending scam. So we're demanding cancellation. We're not begging. We're not on our knees. This is unjust law that we find ourselves under. And as I said before, the least patriotic thing that you can do is put money into this beast. A conservative, Grover Norquist, once said that government should be small enough so that if you needed to, you could take it to the bathroom and drown it in the tub. Well, we are a nonpartisan group. I wouldn't say apolitical, but we are certainly nonpartisan. But I have to say that on that particular thing, the conservatives got it right. And as I said, we only care about student loans. If you stick around long enough, you probably will hear us say terrible things about both the candidate you like the most and the candidate you hate the most. We don't care about any of that. All we care about is student loans. Hey, we see another comment here from Ryan Jones. How do you think this ends? Student loans have ruined an entire generation. We need to cut our losses and cancel all of them. I don't care about the thousands I paid, and everyone else has paid already. There are thousands of artists, entrepreneurs, and pioneers out there who have been totally hamstrung by this awful, inhumane system. Well, Ryan, you're just preaching to the choir, my friend. I see absolutely nothing that I could take issue with in any of your comments. Now, to answer your question, that is a great question. I think it could be an ugly ending where the lending system mounts one last stand and SWAT teams start showing up at people's houses, people start getting their properties liened, etc. And that would be bad. If we do nothing, I suspect it will come to something quite dystopian like that. However, if we fight very hard and if we successfully argue to both Democrats and Republicans who hold the levers of power to save some face and make some lemonade out of these lemons, I think that we can throw a parade for this president or the next when they cancel all student loans. They could return bankruptcy protections, but at this point, I think that would be essentially relegating 10 or 20 million people into bankruptcy. And I don't think that would stimulate the economy very much. I think it would be a long, slow, ugly, painful grind. So, really just getting these loans gone as soon as possible is the right thing to do. I'd like to see it before this election. Hold on, folks. I'm just about to run out of gas. I got to grab my plug. Sorry about that. But again, folks, it really does depend on us making the argument that we're making. Because, dudes, the other cancellation plans that are out there are they're just nonsense. We have the right solution, not the conservative solution or the liberal solution. We have the correct solution. And right now, I'm sorry to say that, but it just resides with us. I know that the Trump administration is aware of our call for him to do this, but I don't think they're taking it very seriously yet. I think what they respond to is pressure. So I did an interview on Fox News Radio 2 days ago. I'm still waiting to actually see the broadcast of it. I haven't seen it yet, so I haven't really looked that hard, but I know that it's out there. But we really, really, really need to get two things. As many signatures on that petition as we can possibly get, and as much good media exposure as we possibly can round up. And, we're doing everything that we can from our end to make that happen. But it really starts with you. If everybody who signed that petition could get 4 more people to sign, then we would have over 1 million signatures. That would be easy. I think we could probably get that done in 2 or 3 or maybe 4 days. If everybody was doing it, I should say. But, the other thing is media exposure. As I said, we've been on pretty much every show you can mention. We've been on Al Jazeera. We've been on Russia Today, Chinese Central Television. PBS, NPR, Rolling Stone, Vice News, 60 Minutes, CNN, just whatever. We've been on all that stuff. CNBC, Fast Company, Fortune, Forbes, etc. So we can do that. We can be doing 30 interviews a day. No problemo. I've got my little stupid studio behind me. But generating interest in this story, the way it works best, I'm not trying to be lazy here, but when if I send a Twitter to Tucker Carlson and say, hey, you should really interview me because I know how to solve the student loan program. Well, people see that and they're like, yeah, this guy, no, we're not doing that. But if a third party says, hey, you should really talk to this guy. He's really got something going on. It's a really interesting thing here and this and that. Well, then there's a much greater chance that the media will be attracted to the story. So I guess that would be the other thing that I would ask you to do. Think of a reporter, think of a news organization that you like and who you think should be reporting on this. Tell them whatever you want, but the 10-second pitch is that we are the oldest, largest, and pretty much only true grassroots group in the nation. We fought for bankruptcy for many years, but we've upped our game and we are now calling for total loan cancellation. We did a petition. It's got 227,000 signatures on it. So, and you should do a story about that. So do that. And like I said, we'll go on any and all media. It doesn't matter to us. Just getting the message out is fine. We've got a lot of time on our hands these days, as most people do. And we're ready to roll. We can rock and roll out interviews all day long. But the way that works best is if you set them up, we will gladly knock them down. And maybe you want to be interviewed yourself. I know we've got a lot of very smart, very competent, very intelligent, well-spoken people on this group. And so by vice versa, if you want me to send an entree to any media that you would like to be interviewed by, well, then let me know, and I will be very happy to try and make those inroads. So from Ryan, have you ever seen Dr. Shiva Ayadurai's presentation on student loans? No, I haven't. Oh, kind of looks interesting though. We've broken some very major stories on how colleges are using their money. People don't realize, and I'm probably going to have to sign off here pretty soon, people don't realize that the colleges are in a better financial position today than they have ever been in the history of colleges. And this goes back to just before the last economic crisis, the subprime home mortgage crisis. As soon as that thing kicked in, the colleges jacked their prices through the roof, and the federal government started throwing over $100 billion a year in loan money at the colleges. Well, flash forward 10, 12, 13 years. That was my globe. Well, I'm going to get that. Hold on. So flash forward 12 years since the crisis, and the colleges have been able to stockpile over and above, completely separate from their endowments. And the amounts are stunning. So this first broke at the University of Wisconsin, where it turned out that they had amassed between $400 million and $1 billion in essentially a slush fund. Now, legislators for the state who oversee the University of Wisconsin, they demanded that this president resign because he had been crying poor for the past 5 years, convincing the legislature to let him raise tuition at double, triple, quadruple the rate of inflation for all those years. And here, the whole time, the college had hundreds of millions of dollars lying around that they were adding to. And the way the college president, I don't know his name, was able to hang on to his job, well, he mounted but everybody's doing it defense. And they compiled statistics for many of their peer institutions. So I can't remember all the colleges, but like Texas, University of Texas, Berkeley, Temple University, sort of higher end private colleges, and maybe some not so higher end private schools. Not all private schools, too, also public schools. And what they showed was astonishing. Berkeley had amassed about a $3 billion slush fund. University of Texas had amassed a $15 billion slush fund. And more recently, the recently resigned rector of the University of Virginia, well, she disclosed that that college had amassed, I want to say, a $3.2 billion slush fund. And those were her words, not mine. Slush fund. May have been 2.1 billion, may have been 3.2, but we're talking a huge amount of money. And this is not limited to the schools that I just mentioned, folks. All across the board, the colleges have been stockpiling. They've been hoarding cash. Some of them have been sending that cash to Central America, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows about the Panama Papers, but hopefully you do. Well, this is a page out of that book. So the colleges have been making a king's ransom from this lending system. And, you know, we try not to go delve too far past what our skis. You know, we're just calling for the cancellation of all student loans, no tax required, nothing on national debt. But, you know, if the taxpayers ended up being a little short on the deal, and I don't think they would be, but if they did, I would be totally cool with doing a massive clawback from our nation's colleges and universities, because Lord knows they have got more money coming out of more orifices in their in their collective academic body than I will get out. I mean, it's just disgusting. Now, I'm not going to do any math in my head, but there's a good chance that the combined total of all this slush fund money could very well equal or even exceed the combined value of all college endowments, which the last time I checked was like 600 and something billion dollars. I would not be surprised at all. I mean, heck, I found a community college in sort of mid or downstate Illinois, community college. They had managed to stockpile like $100 million. Now, what is that? That's just ridiculous, is what that is. So I haven't seen, but you know, I could probably write a book myself on all of the extravagant, ridiculous, obscene spending that the colleges have engaged in. And I'm a big fan of college, folks. I think everybody should be able to get a college degree. I think going to college is, by and large, a pretty good thing to do. But I'm not for all the greed, self-dealing, selfishness, corruption, and so forth that has taken over our colleges and universities. It is disgusting. So, yeah, folks, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there at that. It's Friday night. I just kind of want to do a quick one here tonight. But the two things that I hope you take away from, well, three things I hope you'll take away tonight. Number one, do everything you can to get at least 5 people, if not 50 people, to sign that petition over the weekend. You can see it above, see it over there. Number two, anything that you can do to generate some media exposure for our petition, for our call to stimulate the economy by canceling all student loan debt that won't require one dime of tax or add 1 penny to the national debt. Remember to include that. The better off we'll be. So please get those two things done. The very last thing I'll say is if you could donate to us directly at some point over the weekend, it would be super helpful. For the past month, we've been telling everybody to boost our petition instead of donating money to us, and so it's kind of getting maybe a little bit critical. I don't like to do fundraising all the time, but if you go to our website, studentloanjustice.org, and you look at the top, you can see how you can contribute, how you can donate. Small amounts are super appreciated. We don't require much to survive, thrive, fight, and win this battle, but we can't do it on nothing. So, all right, folks, in the words of immortal words of Benjamin Franklin, we can hang together on this and win. And by the way, we are the only group fighting this fight, so we are it. Or we can all hang separately. So I hope you get that. And I hope that you choose the first thing rather than the second thing. All right, folks, peace.